He thought he was doing the right thing. Only when he crossed over on the Damascus experience did he realize that no, he wasn't following God at all. And we remind ourselves not only that it is that the law of unintended consequences is always in effect. Every time that sin happens, there's a law of unintended consequences that happen. Whatever we do has ramifications for sure. And so those are some things we need to be aware of. When we buy this or we buy that, when we don't support this, or when we don't know what we support and we may be encouraging and justifying in our ignorance something that should not occur. For example, Nike shoes. I stopped buying Nike shoes and clothing when I realized that they send them overseas and get people to make them and don't pay them a decent wage. There are ramifications for all of our actions. Sometimes we may buy something that somebody is selling and we don't know where it came from. We may be offered money and we don't know where it came from. It could be from someone that has been forced into prostitution. Someone who's been forced to be on a pole. We don't know. And so what we do know, that the person may not be working. So where is the money coming from? And so ignorance can allow us to be caught into committing a sin without even realizing it sometime. And Paul goes on to say, I also do what I don't want to do. And here again the discrepancy is real. He's saying here that before I'm acting out of ignorance, but now I'm acting out of inconsistency. I know what I should be doing, but I'm not doing it. I know what is right, but I can't follow it. What is wrong with me, he says. And finally, Paul says, I cannot do the good I want to do. Many times when we say that we're going to do something and we're going to do it to the best of our ability, and we're going to love somebody like we never loved them before, only to get in their presence and fall back into our old self. Even with the best intentions to do what is right, Paul is painfully reminded that he cannot always do what is right. And Paul, often known for condemning the law, goes on to point out that if I know what's right, if my faith and my understanding of scriptures and my teaching and the teachings of Jesus have led me to know what I should do, whether I do it or not, then the word of God, God's law, is good. For the purpose of the law was simply to point out how we should live and what we should not do and what we can do. It orientates us to living right. It just doesn't get us to where, however, it just doesn't get us to where we need to go in terms of being able to match our actions to our knowledge of what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong. The law does not have anything to do with that. It just says, you've sinned. You've done wrong. And so that is the reality of the law. And so what Paul is trying to address in this chapter is this reality of living according to the law. And so the law tells us what we do and what we do not, for the role of the law is to bring to our awareness when we sin. Paul battled covetousness. And the law brought to his attention that he had sinned. And in Galatians, there are lots of indications from Paul that what is considered sin: sexual immorality, impurity, hatred, bitterness, anger, self-ambition, division, envy, jealousy, and drunkenness. All of these things he said are sin. I said drunkenness. I didn't say you couldn't drink. I don't want to go there either. But if you drink too much, that is a sin. And then, for example, we can easily become envious of what somebody else has. And I remember growing up, when one person paved their driveway, another person paved theirs. They may have gone into a great deal of debt doing so, but they were determined to keep up with the Joneses. And sometimes I wonder, is it all worth it? What actually happens when we sin is simple, that sin tempts us to sin.